Welcome to Encounter Grace, where we come face to face with God's work in the world for our good. Join host Jason McKnight as we explore practical issues of community, theology, and leadership in everyday life.
Welcome to Encounter Grace. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason McKnight, and whether you are working out or commuting to work or cooking dinner or just avoiding the yelling kids, we're glad you're here to encounter a little bit of God's grace in your day. I've got with me a great friend and leader here in Eastern North Carolina, Sammy Hudson. He serves as the executive director of the Refuge Camp in Greene County. And if you don't already know about this camp and this ministry, strap on your helmet. You're going to love these next few minutes as we talk together. It's always a miracle a minute with Sammy. Sammy, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. What a blessing.
I mean, we're so glad you're here. Okay, the first thing we have to do is rewind a bunch of weeks back to Christmas time when you guys had the busiest Christmas of your lives because you had the light show.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was a vision we had had for a few years before, but we're so busy during the summer and fall that we never have enough energy to try to accomplish that during that season. We need that rest. But this year, we had more rest than we ever expected.
And so COVID,
So we were able to rethink some things and rethink what our year would look like. And it gave us a chance to live into our vision of sharing and modeling the hope of Jesus during a season where we didn't see a whole lot of campers. We did see some, but not what we're used to.
Yeah. And so we got to drive through the camp and different lights the whole way in different stations. I mean, how many people came through that?
In total, a little more than 5,700 cars came through.
Wow, and they weren't all single drivers.
We thought they were lost. So it was, we are. You have to want to come out to where we are. People don't just pass by our house or the camp. And so we were amazed. The first weekend, we had about 300 cars come through, and we thought that was a miracle.
Right.
We were hoping for in total to have maybe 900 cars for 14 nights. And
wow.
And so for 5,700 cars to come through. By the next weekend, there were cars backed up about a mile up the road, and so we were just like, okay, this is blown way past what we thought would happen.
No doubt. I mean, you must have been every day as more cars were coming. You must have just been thanking the Lord and praying the power didn't go out.
Yeah, we kept thinking we need to put up more lights. There's not enough for people to come all the way out here and see us.
Well, the other thing, I know it didn't start as a fundraiser, but somewhere along the way, someone said, "Let me give to this."
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we, in a year that has been crazy, we felt like we're really going to lose out this year. We depend a lot on folks that give and also with revenue from camps, but everything was just so down. So for a nonprofit, it was a tough year.
Yep.
So we decided we weren't going to charge for people to come through. We didn't want people to feel like they had to give something, but we were going to give the opportunity for people to give $2, $3, $5 to put it in a donation box at the end as they left. And it was just amazing. As we walked through it, we began to see we were starting to have to empty. We had a little box out there. We were starting to have to empty it every hour so that people could put money into it. And it was it was $5. It was change that people were putting in. But it was so incredibly emotional for us in a way because at the end of the night we were sorting through what people had taken out of their pocket to entrust to us. But it was. But they were so grateful, and the encouraging words that people were sharing with us as they drove through. One guy just simply shared, "The world needs more of this."
Yes,
and that meant a lot to us. It was work to put it together. I got tired of trying to find Christmas lights that were out on little strings of light, but but it was worth every bit of it.
Yep.
So
as I went through it, we went through it as a family, and as we came around and came down almost at the lake where it was so well lit up, which was just the best, and then the cross way down at the end. Yeah. But just before then, those the
tunnels.
The tunnel of light. And you know what I did? I actually stopped. There was no one behind me. They were a little farther back. I stopped and then I gunned it and I pretended I was in the Millennium Falcon going light speed.
Now we're talking. That's big time right there. There is a lake right at the end though.
So I didn't. A little bit. Well, I only have a van. I wasn't going that fast.
That's good.
Hey, let's zoom out because that's a fun thing that you. How old is the Refuge?
So we've been there. This is our 13th year.
13th year at that site.
At that site,
and, wow. And how many of those summers, including this past summer, but how many, when did you start overnight camps? 13 years ago?
Yeah, so our first summer of overnight camp was a one-night overnight camp. Of course, Erasing Lines has been going on since before the Refuge, but Our first overnight camp at the Refuge was a one night. It was a week-long day camp, and we spent our first night overnight in tents.
Wow.
And Dustin and I were looking at the pictures today, and there was about 20 campers, and I'm still amazed that people would allow their kids to come stay with us in the middle of nowhere. We put up a tent in the middle of a field with Porta-John. That was our camp. And but we were looking back, and the one thing you realize is it doesn't take a whole lot to spend a great time with kids.
Yeah.
And so they were smiles on their faces. They were having a ball. I remember singing songs with them, doing challenges out in the field. And we think we need all these things, and what we realize is it's not the things. It's the content of what we're doing and the purpose behind what we're doing. And so that's keeping that forefront. I think it's been important for us as we gain some things, some tools.
Right.
The content's still the most important part of what we do.
Absolutely. What else do you do? Like overnight camps, but you do a billion other things. Give us some.
So we have school programs where public, private schools, Christian schools can come out. And we do team building from also forest and freshwater ecosystems. There's a new one that we're going to be starting up next year dealing with homesteading. We're excited about that.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of things that we incorporate into that. With still the idea that we are modeling who Jesus is in everything that we do.
Right.
We also have weekend retreats, and one of the things I really enjoy also is our marketplace ministry opportunities, where businesses come to us, bring their work teams or their whether it's a warehouse crew or different things, and we get to do team building with them and watch the CEOs or the bosses kind of watch and observe what they do. It's always a blast. You learn so much about somebody on the challenge course.
I did not know you were doing that for Marketplace. That is fantastic. Part of the original vision, as I recall it, back as it was being hatched, was that the Lord might use this as a refuge, especially too for inner city kids who don't get a chance to experience God's creation a lot.
Yeah.
Is God fulfilling that part of the vision?
He is in a couple different ways. One, we set aside one full week each summer to work with kids from 3rd to 5th grade from the inner city of Kinston, from Greenville, and also from Greene County.
Yeah.
And we work specifically with the Boys and Girls Clubs. There's a couple of other places that we work with to get kids out there. But there's one week that's just intentionally, all the kids come, they're sponsored, so they don't pay a dime to get there. And we have volunteer teams that come out and help us, some from North Carolina. We have one team that comes from Maryland to join us. And they get excited every year to come back and be a part of that. But the idea is everybody can't afford to go to camp. For a lot of kids, camp is a luxury item. And camps aren't cheap at a lot of places. And so we make that room for those children during that 1 week. But also every week during our camp, we have space for kids that want to come and be scholarshiped. There's kids that can't afford it from every walk of life, not necessarily just in the inner city.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
we want kids to come and not feel like they can't because of finances. And so we make room. We have yet to turn a kid away because they couldn't afford to come.
Right.
And so a lot of times people give, they specifically ask, I want this to go towards a campership, to provide a kid, whether it's an autistic child, to our autism week, to our adventure week, to a mission week, or to our camp that's intentional focused. But every week we have kids that are scholarshiped, and a lot of those kids come from the inner cities where kids can't afford to pay their way to camp.
Yeah. Tell us about ETL.
Yeah. This is 18, year 18.
You're 18 for Erasing the Lines.
That's right.
It was the first year when we moved to Kinston.
That's right.
It was crazy.
It's been such a blessing. Without Erasing the Lines, the Refuge would have really struggled to get off the ground. Because of the partnerships that we were able to form. Like with you all, this church has been such a blessing to us, not just in how they give to the Refuge monthly, but the support, the encouragement, the adopting of projects. You guys, I don't know if you remember or not, you adopted the hardwood floors in our first house.
Wow.
Grace Fellowship did.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah. So when we I moved our first house out to the camp, we didn't have any funds. And so we had to get creative in how we redid the houses. So I went to different churches and I asked them to adopt specific projects. And your project, I came and I called you up and I said, hey, I have a crazy idea. And I do that quite often to you and to others. And say, would you guys adopt a project? Because if I were to say, will you adopt a house, it's a bit overwhelming.
Right.
But will you adopt the hardwood floors? Okay, yeah, we can do that. So then I had to figure out how to get the hardwood floors in the house. But then I could call and say, hey, we got hardwood floors. And I knew I had somebody waiting to do them. But y'all came in with sanders, and you had some ladies come in and help polyurethane the floors, and they look beautiful.
Yeah, I bet you it was Barbara Patty. I bet you
It
she
was
was
Barbara
one,
Patty.
as she
That was
lives
one of
right
them.
around
Yes,
the corner.
that's
Yep.
right.
And she has sanded some hardwood floors.
Yeah.
Sammy, it's kind of like you're always in the right. Here's me thinking as I reflect on you, watching you for these 18 years. Is it feels like you're so often in the right place at the right time for something big to happen. It's somebody said we should call this episode "Miracles with Sammy." Tell us about some of the miracles recently.
Well, the light show is certainly a miracle, and it's really it's honoring to me that you would say miracles, because that's what the refuge is. It's a place of miracles, and it's not I'm not a miracle worker. I just know the miracle worker.
Yeah.
And so I have the front row seat to the most incredible journey. And you shared it at the very beginning that this is a 70-year vision. I started doing that math when I was 30 years old, and we were starting to do this camp, and I'm like, that's the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so it's not an overnight process, but to live a life where you get to see God do miracles is a life worth living. And that's where we're at the refuge. And there's so many different miracles. Light show was certainly a recent one. I'm going to share one that nobody really probably knows about. And it's not one that was a public miracle.
Right.
But we were working on the Moses house one day. A fellow who was needing some help came out and began to work with us out at the camp. And he spent a couple of years out working with us on different projects. But he was a genius when it came to working on old houses. And he knew, and I knew, that we needed to put something under the house to hold it in place. And so we built this I-beam. And it was probably 600 pounds. I mean, it was incredible. It took both of us to put it on rollers to roll it under the house. And then we had to fasten it up underneath the house. So it was the end of the day, and we're looking at each other, and we're like, how's this going to happen?
There's two of you?
There's two of us, all right? And we hadn't lifted it yet. All we've done is lifted one end together and put rollers on it so we can roll it under the house. And now we're trying to attach it to the beams so that we can put center blocks underneath it to make the floor steady.
Right.
And we wanted to get it done for the end of the day. And we tried our hardest, and we just couldn't do it. And we were exhausted. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon by now. And all of a sudden, we hear this big diesel truck drive up. And you have to imagine, we're under a house that's got a 2-foot crawl space. And we're looking out underneath the front of the house, and we see these huge tires rolling up underneath the house. And this diesel fumes coming out, and it's this black truck. And then we peek under a little further, and there's these cowboy boots, like really nice black cowboy boots. That's all we could see out of coming out of this black truck. So I crawl out, and I see this guy getting out of the truck, and he looked like he was full-fledged, ready to play in a mariachi band, right? And so he has on this coat that has the things hanging off the front of it, like the little
like the tassels,
strands, the tassels hanging off the front, and he had this huge hat on. And he took the hat off, and he says, "What are you?" It's kind of broken English. He was this Hispanic guy. He was so nice, and he got out and says, "What is this place? I was supposed to stop here today, and what are you doing here?" And I was like, hey, exactly. So I'm like kind of blown away, and so we began to share what the vision is, and that was only our second house. There was really not a whole lot at the camp yet,
right?
But we started sharing this vision, and he started listening. And he says, "Well, I was supposed to stop here. What are you doing?" And I says, "We're trying to get this beam under this house." And so as we're talking, he begins to pull out coveralls out of the back of his truck and put them on over his boots and over his nice stuff. And he literally crawls under the house, and he lays down beside this beam. And he said, "Lift it and put it on my back." Oh, this is. And so we lift it one side, and he said, so now he's giving us instructions, and we're listening. And so this my friend gets on one side, and I get on the other, and we kind of start lifting as he lifts with his back and lifts the beam up into place, while Patrick, who's with me, started nailing the beam in place.
Wow.
He got down, dusted off, shared a few things with us, and he left. Never got his name. Have never seen him again. People show up out of the refuge at certain times for certain things that we can't explain. But we just know it's God's place.
Yeah.
And this guy, there's no reason for him to be there.
Yeah.
Don't know who he is. Have never seen him again, except, and he didn't even match up. It was like he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he wasn't. He was in the right place for the right time.
Yep.
And God knew what we needed, and he provided it. And so all we can do is give him glory for what he's done. I know zero about building a camp. God knows everything about building a camp.
Yeah.
And so he provides what's needed as we walk.
Well, I can't wait to get to heaven to see if he really was an angel, and you'll get to meet the Mariachi Angel.
That's what I believe. Yep, no doubt.
Like seriously, Hebrews, entertaining angels unaware.
Yep. No doubt.
God sends. Wow, that is amazing. Tell us about what else is going on at the camp. What other building projects or campus changes are coming?
So this past year's been an incredible year. This spring, we will wrap up our phase 2 of development, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's about a $1.4 million phase. And
you're coming to the end of it.
We're coming to the end of it. So, and the cool thing is we have all the funds to finish it.
Yes, there's no
debt.
So
we're going to cross. That's right. We're going to cross the finish line this spring. That's a big deal. So there's 3 big projects that people will see happening this spring. One is we needed a new storage building. Our maintenance building has become our catch-all, but we can't work in it anymore because it holds our tractors, lawnmowers, all those things. So we're going to have a place to park our van, our bus, our lawnmowers, our tractors, to keep them in good shape so that we can have a space to work. And that's going to be really nice. We're going to have a tree house that's going to be built this spring, and it's going to be our craft hut.
Wow.
So that's going to be really cool. And it's going to have a deck that overlooks the front lake at a place where a lot of us like to sit and watch the sunset. This is going to give us a neat patio deck sitting outside of a craft hut in the trees. And it's going to have a slide going out the back. That's kind of the kid in me. For the kids to do crafts and do a slide out the back of the...
So you're talking a real tree house?
A real tree house, yeah. It'll be up about 12, 15 feet up off the ground. And so you'll climb up into it, and then you'll be able to slide out of it. And that'll be a lot of fun for us. And then finally, something we've been trying to get done, but the timing hasn't worked out. Our back lake is going to get renovated so that we can maintain it. There's going to be a nice island developed on it so that we can now develop around it to begin phase 3.
Wow. And then what happens in phase 3?
Yeah, so the first element of that is going to be the Refuge Seed Company.
Okay.
And so our board has finally sat down and said, we have to have this. We're now going to have more than 100 beds since we've just, we're finishing up the new house. And our largest meeting space is for about 60. And so with 100 beds and our largest meeting space being 60, we have to have a place that people can gather, eat indoors. Because for years we've been gathering under an outdoor building and eating.
Which is great, but rain and wind is
it's the process
tough.
that you have to walk through. But now we're kind of to the point where we have to have a place that we can work out of and do ministry out of that people want to come to the refuge and be in a climate-controlled area to meet and eat.
So the seed company is coming up in phase 3 as God provides the
funds.
funds.
It's the very first thing right off the bat.
Right on.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that.
And the pool is great.
The pool has been such a blessing. I mean, when you swim in the front lake for 5 years leading up to that, you're kind of like, the pool is really a miracle in itself. There's clear water, and we can see kids when they go underwater, which for a lifeguard, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
So, yes, the pool is a great asset, and we're going to utilize the back lake and the front lake in different ways.
Yeah.
But for swimming, the pool is really cool.
It's just a dream. How about new programs? What new programs are coming, or new camp ideas are coming?
Yeah, so we're always dreaming programs. We just this past year started one called Creation Adventure, which we've had Creation Discovery for elementary. There was a little bit of a gap, and we realized that for our middle high students who were finishing 5th grade, there wasn't a whole lot except for missions, which are really cool. But there wasn't a lot if you weren't involved in a church doing missions with us for kids after elementary school. And so now we started a new camp this for 4th through 8th grade. And it's a Creation Adventure. And it's a little more high-end. I mean, we do some outdoor camping and full-day canoeing and different things that the regular elementary camps don't do.
Right.
And so they feel like, hey, we've graduated. Now we get to do some different things. The one I'm most excited about is this year for the first time we're doing the Refuge Leadership Camp. And so it's going to be a 2-week camp with the idea that it's going to hold 11th and 12th graders. We're only having 12 campers, but it's going to be very intentional on preparing them to walk into a college campus.
Yes.
With the battles they're going to face spiritually, what it means to be an adult now. Now I don't have to let mom know when I'm leaving the house or when I'm, what I'm going to eat tonight. I can kind of figure those things out for myself. But what does that look like? It's a crazy time in the world we live in right now. It's a dangerous time, and so equipping these teenagers to be adults in a world that wants to swallow them up, and so we're excited about that. We have some great leaders going to help us out with that. Jimbo and John Perry are going to be a part of that with us.
Yes.
They're going to take them for a weekend to the beach and spend some intentional time with them on what it looks like to have a godly marriage, to be a godly man and woman in a world that tends to be walking away from morality. So we're really excited about that.
And probably they'll have opportunities to serve and to sacrifice in those 2 weeks, because that's what leadership is, and that's how you grow.
That's right. So they're going to walk away with some skills. They're going to get a wilderness first aid training while they're there, which is a lot of fun. But we want to equip them in ways that are very practical.
Yeah.
And so they're going to lead as part of the mission week. Autism week is one of the weeks at camp as well. So they're going to actually be able to step in and counsel some as well. So they're not just campers. It's kind of that medium step into becoming that leader. We want to kind of put them in those roles to be those leaders.
That's right.
And to walk with them rather than just throwing them out there.
Well, exactly, because you're there to help them and,
That's right.
and to navigate them through the couple of missteps they're going to make, because we all do.
Yes.
It's a good
do.
thing. Tell us about the staff team that God has assembled.
Yeah, so we have some incredible staff. One, Chris Elks is our maintenance staff, and he heads up our facilities, and by far one of the most creative, hardworking individuals I've ever met, and doesn't have a day of complaining. Lenny Furlow is our program director, and I've known Lenny for a long time. Before we started the camp, I went to him with a blank piece of paper, and I said, "We're going to build a camp." And I put a blank sheet of paper in front of him and says, "What's it going to look like?" And he said, "You tell me." And so he's been a part of the process with me for a long time. I'm thrilled that he would choose to come and work with us. And he said at the beginning his goal was to fill up the camp, and he has. Wow. Before the pandemic hit, every weekend was full. The summer camps were filling up. It's really been we've been playing catch up since he's been there because we've been busy.
Right.
We just added Thomas Vermillion as kind of an associate to Lenny in the programming area, and he's learning, but he has an incredible work ethic, and he's excited to be there, and he's passionate about being with us, and so we've enjoyed getting to know him, and we have big plans for him as well. And then in our office we have Terry, who's been worked with us in many different ways, and most folks don't know she's an accountant. That's her. She loves working with numbers. I'm glad she does, because I leave her alone in those areas. But the biggest thing in our staff team is this: they're all committed to the mission there, and to the passion, and they encourage me as a leader, and they've watched the miracles of God just like I have, and so they don't think necessarily, "Hey, I wish I was somewhere else," or
right.
This is where God has me, and they're excited about being there. It's a blessing and an honor to work with them.
It is a blessing and honor, and I love all those people, and I think the Lord is putting together some of the greatest folks in that to magnify this ministry. Let me put you a little bit on the spot as folks around Eastern North Carolina are listening to this, and people in different churches and in different communities. But the Refuge really serves the Lord by enabling the church in ways that one individual church does. As you reflect on things, what would you love to say to the church in Eastern North Carolina? Where would you love to see God move us?
I see churches struggling with their identity. We live in a society that's struggling with identity, and I see churches trying to figure out where they fit into that. One of the things, in fact, so much so that this year we're actually going back to a theme that we've used for the first time ever. We're gonna reboot a theme that we've used in ETL out of 1 Kings, dealing with Elijah on Mount Carmel. And Elijah looks at the people that are before him, and he asks a simple question: "How long will you waver?" And we have a church, not any specific church,
right?
But the body of Christ is struggling with the same things that they were struggling with in the days of Elijah. That there are so many things that are luring us away from the church, even though we're still looking like the church. So, we have the appearance of godliness, but not necessarily the power. And so my encouragement would be is don't forget who you are in Christ. That our God is more than the things around us. And so when you're called to do something that is bigger than you, step into it. When you're called to do something that doesn't make sense, but you know it's the God leaning on you to do it, do it. Don't worry about logistics. God takes care of the little things. He does. And so don't be afraid to walk into that which God is calling you to do. Don't be afraid of it. And we have to dream bigger as a church than we give ourselves credit for. God wants us to ask him to do great things. Because he can.
Yep, that's right. And all he wants from us is faithfulness and faith.
Yes.
He takes care of the rest. Sammy, thank you so much for joining us today, encouraging us here around Eastern North Carolina. Y'all can find out more of what God is up to at the Refuge by going to ncrefuge.org, or you can look at it in the description below the video. I'm telling you, this is truly one of the ways that God is allowing us in Eastern North Carolina to encounter grace, is what he's doing through the refuge. So, Sammy, thank you for following the Lord, and thank you for coming here today.
Man, thank y'all for having me. What a blessing.
And thank you for joining us. Share and like this video. Comment if you want. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe and do more, and we'll keep this community going. Blessings.
This is a ministry of Grace Fellowship Church in Kinston, North Carolina. Visit gracekinston.org or follow us on Facebook and Instagram.